We are here with Master Chef Jacques Pepin. It is such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for welcoming us into your home.
Thank you. Okay, well, you're welcome.
We are so looking forward to you joining us for our gala on October 1st and really giving our viewers an opportunity to meet you and at the same time support our station. They know you, so many people know you from your cooking shows,
Yes.
and from PBS.
That's really PBS, yes, more than, I mean, I'm a big PBS man and I've been on PBS 40 years, something like this, you know. So the first series I did was in 1982, you know, in Jacksonville, Florida, and eventually most of the series I did with KQED San Francisco, and we shot here as well. So yes, I'm a big PBS man, me and Julia, of course.
Of course.
I was with Julia, lived in Boston, and I teach at Boston University actually for 45 years, you know, so a long, long time. So we used to teach together actually, so we had a great time. I met Julia in 1960, so I know her a long, long time.
I wonder, a lot of people probably wondered, did you meet and know each other before you did the PBS series together? Were you good friends for many years before?
Yes, actually I came here at the end of 1959. I came to America and I met Julia in 1960. You know, not long after, I had a friend of mine, Helen McCulley, was the food editor of McCall, How Beautiful. She became kind of my surrogate mother in New York, way before I was married. And she said, oh, I received the manuscript of a book, you want to take a look at it? And it was Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And she said, well, the woman is coming to New York next week, you want to cook for her? I said, yes. She said, it's a tall woman with a terrible voice, you see. And I met Julia, and at that time I met James Beard and Craig Leborn, who started at the New York Times. So these were the trinity of cooking in America: Craig Leborn, the New York Times, James Beard, and Julia. And I knew them less than 6 months after I was here, to show you how small the food world was at that time. It was another world.
And could you have imagined when you met her that however many years later you and Julia would be on public television?
No, absolutely not. She didn't either, because when I met her, she had never done a book before, she had never done television, she was never the food editor of a magazine, newspaper, so she was not known at all, you know, at that point. So, and she just came back from France. I remember, because when I met her, we spoke French more than English. French was better than my English at the time.
You and Julia had such a great friendship, and I think you could really see it on the air.
Yeah, but we argue all the time, so.
You,
But we drank a lot of wine too. Hi, Julia, to you, okay.
You did. But I think the viewers saw that you were genuine, that was a genuine friendship, and I think they loved you.
You know why? Because to start with, I've done 13 series of 26 shows, I say, with KQED. And at the beginning, they say, editing is too expensive, you have to do it on time. So a 30-minute show, like 29 minutes, I did 3 recipes too, so I would have someone coming with a sign, say 15 minutes, 7 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute wrap up, which is pretty stressing, you know, in some ways. So that was it. Then when I started doing a series with Claudine, my daughter, I wanted her to be the vox populi, to be able to explain what I was doing, people. So I said, you know, it's going to be hard for me to show her how to make a dough. She's rolling it, and I see a sign 1 minute, I'm going to push her over, grab it. So they said, okay, but not too much, or 4, 5. So we did those shows and go 5 minutes over or so. We started with Julia. Julia said, we're going to cook. When it's finished, we'll tell you. I think we had shows which were 80 or 90 minutes. I don't know what happened to the B-roll, which I know. That was one thing. The second thing also is that when you do a series on television, as I've done, you come at least with the manuscript of the book. So people in the back kitchen have an idea of what you're going to do. We had no recipe here with Julia. So we said, let's do stew tomorrow, let's do whatever. So why did I put scallion in that stew? Because they happen to be on the table. They're there. We have no recipe. No recipe, a lot of wine, and no time limit. So we had a good time. I think people can feel it.
I think so. I think that appealed to a lot of people. And they loved you. You just had such great chemistry together, the two of you. So you're coming up to visit us in Plattsburgh on October 1st. Have you been to Plattsburgh before, the Adirondacks?
I don't think that I've been to the Adirondack. I mean, I used to ski in Stowe, Vermont, Burlington. And of course, I used to live upstate New York in the Catskill, at Hunter Mountain. You know, so I used to do a lot of skiing.
And so many of our friends are north of the border in Montreal and Quebec, and you've been to Montreal before. And
oh oui, à Montréal. Mes amis à Montréal. J'aimerais pouvoir retourner vous voir un de ces jours, mais peut-être que je le ferai bientôt. En attendant, à votre santé. Merci.
Good food up there. Did a number of good
Oh, yes,
restaurants.
of course, great food, good people. So, no, I had a great time in Montreal and in Quebec. You know, I've been there many times, yeah, with friends.
You really enjoy showing people, many who have never cooked before, never been in the kitchen, never picked up a spatula. You show them how to make really delicious meals, quick and easy, on a budget. And is that really what you love doing?
Yes, I mean, you know, I was in apprenticeship in 1949. So you can see, I'm going to be 87, so I've been in the kitchen 75 years or more professionally, you know. So I've worked with very important people. I've done some of the greatest restaurants. So I've done very fancy food, and it changed, you know, your metabolism changed. And now at my age, I realize maybe as a young chef, often you tend to add and add and add more to the plate and this and that. Now that I get older, I can retrieve from the plate to be left with something more essential, like the tomato just out of the garden, right temperature, a bit of coarse salt, dash of. I don't need embellishment anymore. So, you know, it changed. One is not better than the other. Your life changed this way, and certainly at the beginning of the pandemic there, my daughter Claudine told me, why don't you do some recipe of like 3, 4, 5 minutes to show people what they have in the refrigerator, in the pantry, in the freezer, what they can use. And we've done almost 300 of those with my friend Tom that you've met, and Tom has been my photographer for my book for 40 years. He's the one handling my art site also, and then he's the one taping those shows. So when we do them, we do usually 10 to 12 shows a day. Those are 5 minutes, you know, and just the two of us, because we started at the beginning. His wife didn't even want to come in the kitchen, beginning of the pandemic. So I cook and do the dishes, and he shot and said so. So it's pretty simple.
That's amazing.
I realize also, I'm sorry to cut you, but all of those shows that I've done, KQED and so many series, we had to raise $1.5 million to do those series. Here we do those two things together. I spend maybe $200-300 going to the market, and that's about it. You know, so very cheap production.
And that is amazing. You mentioned nearly 300 videos you've done on YouTube, on Facebook Live. You've also done cooking demonstrations on Facebook Live.
Yeah, that my daughter uses it on Facebook, and my son-in-law uses it on Instagram as well. So my son-in-law is a chef as well, but he teaches cooking at Johnson & Well, and he's the one who created the Jacques Pepin Foundation with my daughter. So,
which is fantastic. I'm going to ask you a little bit about that. During the pandemic, you mentioned people were stuck at home. A lot of people were really forced to go into the kitchen and to cook for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure the pandemic caused a lot of divorce, but it also caused a lot of people to get together more and cook together, and not only cook together, but eat together, sit down. And that's very important. I mean, when Claudine, my daughter, she's in her 50s now, she was 3 years old or 2 years old, I hold her in my arm, and I say, allez, remue. So she would mix for me, you know. So she, quote, eat it because she made it with that, you know. So same thing with my granddaughter. She came, she's taller than me. She's starting at BU actually next month. So
we remember her as the little granddaughter who joined you on your shows.
Exactly. So I put a stool next to me, and I said, okay, give me the salad. Do you think it's clean enough? What do you think? Test it. Give me a bowl. Go to the garden. I need some parsley. So I go there with the gun. I say, no, that's chive. Test it. That's parsley. Okay, taste it. Go to the market with her. I say, give me some tomato. Make sure they are ripe, or pear. Did you smell them? You think they are ripe? Came back. She helped me, and that's what a kind of canvas onto which to build a conversation. And of course, the more important part is the sharing of the food after you sit down and talk. So in our family, this has always been a very, very important part of our family, the sharing of food, the making of food, and being together, you know, so.
And so many viewers grew up watching Claudine and then Shori, and really enjoyed them because they asked so many of the questions we would ask. What are you doing? How are you preparing it? And
it's interesting you said that, because the first series I did with Claudine, cooking with Claudine, well, of course, people tell her, how is it to have a Jacques Pepin, famous chef from, she said, I don't know, I never have another one. This one is. So Of course, we had great food at home, but she never knew what we was. She ate it fine, you know. So when we started doing the series, I didn't even tell her what we were doing, the menu. So we started. She said, "Wow, that's how you do it." And a lot of people wrote that she's faking it. I'm sure she knew. No, she didn't know. She knew how to eat it. She already, but she never knew how to do it. So it was very natural this way. So she could ask questions and so forth. So when she moved to BU many years ago, she's mid-50s now, so at Boston University, and I started teaching there at that point a long time ago. So I remember I helped her renovate a little apartment there. I built up the kitchen, I do stuff too, and then she invited me for dinner. One night I was there, so she went to the market. She said, my father loved chicken, and we had chicken with roast potato, onion, loved that, simple. I brought a bottle of wine. So she looked at chicken, and there was other bigger chicken next to it, twice as expensive. So I'm going to take those, more expensive. Those were, of course, hand poultry. So she cooked them. They were dry like hell and overcooked because too old. So we ate. We drank the bottle of wine, and I didn't say anything. And finally, she said, "So, what do you think?" And apparently I told her, "Do you want my opinion of the father or the chef?" Or the father, it was very good.
That's wonderful. Now you mentioned Claudine and Raleigh, her husband. They, with you, established the Jacques Pepin Foundation.
Yeah, right.
And you really do, in just a few short years, you have raised millions to help organizations that help people.
Yes, we work with the community kitchen, and usually not for young chefs. It's usually people in their mid-30s, mid-40s, mid-50s. Mostly people who come out of jail, former drug addicts, homeless people, veterans even. So people who've had kind of a problem in life, you know, I mean, be disenfranchised and so forth. I did so many shows, so many hundreds of techniques that I've done, video and so forth. So we use those videos as well as cookbook to give them the basic technique of cooking so that they can reincorporate the world of food. And within a couple of months, the guy may start as a dishwasher on the vegetable, but if he works good, within 3-4 weeks, you move it up, and you can redo a life and get some of your dignity back and some happiness. So it's good. We've done very well with that, and I'm very proud of what my son-in-law and Claudine did there. Yeah.
Life skills, culinary skills, and many of them find jobs in the food service industry, in the culinary industry.
Oh yes, absolutely, and we need people like this, absolutely no question. In the food world now, we need a lot of people, which we don't have. So it's nice to do that, and the kitchen is really a teamwork. You work in a kitchen hard. I mean, I did that all my life, and my motto also is that everyone is the same in the eye of the stove. So, whoever you are, black, white, this, that too, it's 11 o'clock, you have 100 people sitting for lunch, you better move, whoever you are. So this is the kitchen, but it's really a teamwork, in the kitchen, and you get involved in that, and you can be very happy. I mean, of course, you have to do it for the right reason, and the right reason is that you like to cook and please people. So, but it's a nice life. I mean, I've done it for close to 80 years. So.
And you've changed lives with the foundation. That must be satisfying for you to be able to do that.
Absolutely, yes. We did already when I was at the French Culinary Institute in New York for years. I was a dean there. We used to give some scholarship to people who were a bit disenfranchised like that. And it's exciting, to see a young guy or a young woman 4 or 5 years later, all of a sudden they are the chef at that restaurant, and now they have a life too. So at that point that you change someone's life, so, and that's good.
You're such a prolific author of 32 books. The 32nd is going to be coming out in September.
Right.
And tell us about that, your latest book.
It's called The Art of Chicken. And as you may know, in my family, I was married 54 years, and all those years, when people came to the house, we write down what we did, the menu for our friend, family, and people sign on the other side to say funny things, and sometimes we put the music. If we had a great bottle of wine or champagne, we take the label, stick it in. So Claudine, actually, my daughter, came a few months ago back to the house, and she said, "What did I eat for my third birthday?" I said, "Let's look." We find her third birthday. She had drawn little chicken and all that too. So those books for me, it's my whole life. I mean, my mother in there, everyone is in those books. So I decided to do a book, actually, I did a few years ago, a book of menu like that, like 80 illustration of menu which people buy to fill up themselves what they do. So going back to the book, it's going to be published in September there, Art of Chicken. I realized that in those illustrations I was doing a lot of chicken. So I decided, I said, well, I want to do a book of my chicken illustration. And my editor, publisher said, yeah, great, terrific, but we want recipe. I said, I don't want recipe. I've done hundreds of books. So we have over 100 panning of chicken, and with story of chicken, story of eggs or chicken. I have a book called The Apprentice, which is a story of my life. Yes. So it's the same idea. I will talk to you about what I served to the president in France, up to a truck stop somewhere in South Africa, in terms of chicken or eggs or stuff. Story from China to Connecticut, So it was a fun book.
And it also includes your artwork, some of your beautiful paintings and drawings.
That's it. We have 100 paintings of chicken in there, so that's good.
And your kitchen here is decorated with some of your beautiful artwork.
Yes, yeah, we do that. I used to do some mosaic like that thing and some painting. Yes, I used to do a lot of floor. I mean, in the house that we have renovated here, I did a lot. All the wall outside here, I used to do that. I mean, I used to love to do cement and stone wall and sheet rocks and, yeah. I work with my hand. My father was a cabinet maker by trade, but of course, when I was a kid, 13 years old, I left to go into apprenticeship. My mother had a restaurant, and my father was a cabinet maker. At that time, of course, we didn't have the telephone, we didn't have television, of course, we didn't have a radio, it didn't really exist, really. So, no magazine or stuff, so life was probably much simpler and easier than now. So either I had blinders, either I'm a cook or a cabinet maker, So that's it. So I went into cooking.
Cook you became, yes.
Yeah, it was an easy choice, I guess.
You love to paint. Is that your hobby, your passion?
Yes, I do, and we have that art side that Tom is doing, and he's doing very well. I'm amazed, even. I mean, I never would have done a foundation. I would never have done an outside to sell painting, and he's selling a lot of painting. So illustration and menu, I do menu for special occasion, or people ask me, and so yeah, it's fun.
And the art, was that something as a child, or when did you
Not really
develop your love
of
artwork?
When I came back when I came to the U.S. in 1959, I left school when I was 13 years old, so I wanted to go back to school. And I was in New York. I said, the best school, someone told me, is Columbia University. So I took the subway, went to Columbia, and 3 weeks later I was enrolled at Columbia, English for foreign students, so forth. That was 1959, and I went on to Columbia until the end of 1973, working, but going English for foreign students and some type of validation program. Then I did a BA, then I did a master, and then I was doing a PhD there. So I went there forever. And at some point at the beginning, I took an art class. I had some drawing, I think, and another one in the sculpture. And so that started. And then after, we had a whole bunch of friends who rented a house upstate New York in the Catskill, at Woodstock, and it was kind of a artist community, So we all started either redoing old chair or painting or repairing or painting or doing stuff, and we're a whole bunch. Yeah, that was fun.
So I know a lot of people probably wonder, all the years you've cooked in the kitchen, all the wonderful meals you've prepared, do you have one that you love the most? Is there a dish or a meal that just is your absolute favorite, either to prepare as a chef or to enjoy?
I tell you, if you can get the greatest possible bread, baguette that I have as a kid, and the greatest possible butter, it's very hard to beat bread and butter. So it's an extraordinary thing. Otherwise, I cook depending on what the market has, or or what I have in the garden, what I'm in the mood of. You know, whether it's winter, summer, I want a soup, this, whether I have a hangover or not, so I want a salad too. So, yeah, you work with this or special occasion. 2 weeks ago, actually, with Michel Nichon, with a great chef, two friends of mine, and my son-in-law, Rolly, the three of us, to feed 20 people who pay like $75,000 for the foundation on price that we gave for them to come play boule with us and eat. So we had lobster souffle, I had truffle, we had caviar, we had very fancy stuff. So one of the last great dinner we did a lot of champagne, a lot of stuff. So yeah, everyone always finished with food.
But as you mentioned, for you, if you have that perfect bread and fresh
bread
butter.
and butter, are you kidding? Yeah.
And is there a comfort food? You mentioned soup. Is there anything that you would turn to as a comfort food?
Soup probably even more so as I get older, and what my wife labeled fridge soup. I open the fridge and whatever is left over, half a carrot, a piece of onion, this, that too, that goes with a soup, finish it with a bit of pasta or whatever. Yeah, soup, winter, summer, we have soup, yeah. I never throw anything out, so I'm a very miserly cook, probably because of my being raised during the Second World War and my mother being this way.
Yeah.
And all of those women in certainly Lyon, where I've come from in France, is known for the formidable woman of Lyon, of chefs. Some of the greatest chefs France were from Lyon women. And in my family in France, I can count 12 restaurants, 12 of them run by women. I was the first male to go into that business. So, but some of the 3-star restaurants in Lyon were owned run by women and so forth. So that type of cooking is basically what I go back to, I guess. The dishes that you have as a child, are very visceral. They are very powerful, and you go back to those tastes, whether you come from South Africa or Indiana or anywhere in the world, doesn't make any difference. Those tastes are. When I always think of those kids in the war in Afghanistan or Iraq, whatever, what do they dream of at night? You dream of the clam chowder of your father, or the southern fried chicken of your mother, or the lobster roll. Very good. So at that point, the food becomes much more than the physiological function of food itself. It transcends the level of taste. It becomes home. It becomes security. It becomes love. It becomes so. Food, yes. Those dishes of your youth are very powerful. Yes.
You remember them forever, for a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can. Blinded. It was the way it was also in France. Remember when I was an apprentice, there was no book, there was no recipe. You work in a restaurant, and it was to conform. The chef tell you do this, and you never question. If you had to say why, you would have said, because I just told you. That's what about the end, which is a different way of teaching now, entirely different. But this was the way it was. So I remember, I can close my eye. If I had the chicken, my mother, I said, that's my mother's chicken. This is the lobster souffle of the Plaza Athénée in Paris. Or this is the striped bass of the Pavilion in New York. I will recognize those tastes.
I remember those. When you got here to the States, and at some point, did you realize that a lot of people just didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the techniques that they noted, that they needed to cook?
It was another world. To start with, I have to say that most people come to America to get a better economic life, usually, or for a political reason, or for religious reason, or racist reason. I didn't have any of this. I was doing very well in Paris. My parents had a restaurant in Lyon, but I wanted to come to America. America was El Dorado, and so I said, I'll stay a year, maybe 2 years, and come back, which, of course, 60 years ago. So it's true that it was another world. I mean, the Pavilion, I work in New York, was the greatest French restaurant too, and all of the great so-called restaurants were kind of French, or so-called continental, with French menu, usually totally misspelled, but anyway. So it was another world. And when I was actually in the spring of 1961, I was offered the job at the White House for Kennedy, and I was offered the job for Howard Johnson, which was and I went to Howard Johnson, and people always ask me, why would you do that? Because at that point, the cook was really at the bottom of the social scale. Any good mother would have wanted her child to marry a lawyer or an accountant, but certainly not an architect, but certainly not a cook. Now we are genius. I don't know what happened. But in any case, so in the context of the time, I was with President in France, the last one I was with de Gaulle, and I served Eisenhower, Nehru, Tito, those were the head of state at the time. Not anyone ever would ask you to come for kudo in the dining room. That did not exist. Not anyone, I never had an interview with a magazine, newspaper, where television barely existed. That did not exist. The cook was in the back kitchen, that's it. If anyone come there, it was to complain about something. So again, I'm saying that to say that I had no inkling of the possibility of publicity when I was asked to go to the White House. I had done it, and I was at Columbia, I was doing other things, so I didn't want to leave New York, so that's what I went to. And actually, Howard Johnson, it was a totally American environment. I learned about mass production, marketing, chemistry of food, all kind of things that I didn't know. When I left, I stayed 10 years at Howard Johnson, 1960, 1970. I opened a restaurant on Fifth Avenue called La Potagerie. It was a mass production, soup too. Then I opened the World Trade Center with Joe Baum, big thing. Then I was a consultant at the Russian tea rooms. I'm saying all of that to say I would never have been able to do any of those jobs without the training of Howard Johnson. As a French chef, I didn't know about production or stuff like this. So it was another world, It was exciting. It was very exciting at the time, And I realized in 2000, actually, Time magazine asked me they did 100 most important people of the 20th century. One of them was Ray Kroc, the McDonald, But I knew him personally. I had met him several times with Mr. Johnson, Howard Johnson. They asked me to do his profile, and I realized at that time, when I was doing a bit of research, in 1960, I was there in 1960, 1917, the mid-60s, Howard Johnson was the largest restaurant group in America. Bigger than McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger King, all together were smaller than Howard Johnson. We had over 1,200 restaurants. It served more people except for the American Army. So it was a big company. It was a big company.
And you really enjoyed your time at Howard Johnson's?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I know people have always probably asked you though, did you think back years later about, should I have gone to the White House? Should I have been the chef for the president and the first lady?
Yes, in general, but not really. I mean, my life changed, I'm very existentialist this way, I feel that you do a decision somewhere, it projects you, it puts you there. From there, you do another decision, it projects you there. So this is the way life works. I mean, I came to America for a year, and it was a small decision. It ended up being a big decision. Than other decisions that you do like that in life. I think that's the way it worked for me. No, I never really regretted it. I've been to the White House a few times, so but.
And your years on public television, your years of doing television shows and writing books,
right.
You've really enjoyed that over
the
decades.
Yes, I did. As a cook, for me, it was interesting that I wrote for the New York Times for like 10 years and Food and Wine magazine and so forth. So if I had to do that every day for the New York Times, I'd probably get out of my mind. But the beauty of it, I was consultant to do restaurants. I was a chef there. I did magazine. I did television. So it's all food. But if I were to do only television, I probably would get crazy, So, but doing all of those different types of things in the world of food, that made my life very enjoyable.
And you still do so many events, book signings and demonstrations,
and
right.
Yes. My daughter pushed me, and she's on a cruise now. She started today. I am the executive culinary director of a cruise line, Oceania Cruise Line, and she is one of the godmother of a ship, so she's on, and will be there actually in September. I'm going up your way, up to Montreal, and up the north, and coming back with the Marina, one of the ship. I do a couple of, cruise usually every year, doing some demonstration and to the people, so I enjoy that too.
Nice, wonderful. So how's the summer been? It's dry here in Connecticut. Has that affected your gardens at all?
Yeah. It's raining today, fortunately. You came, thank you.
We brought the rain with it. Yes.
Yeah, my garden is still there. I have to say less and less as I'm getting older and older. I work less and less in the garden. more. I have a lot of farm around, so I can go and get fresh peas and tomato or whatever. So I'm not deprived. So.
And you have your own herb garden here. And,
Oh yeah, of course.
and is there anything, any ingredient that this summer that you're trying out that's new and different in your cooking?
Not really. I mean, you know what I do. I went to the market actually last week. Funny you say that. It was a Chinese market because I wanted to have some tripe, some kidney. I bought some all kind of stuff that I don't really use much except for me, because when I do the show that I do, I often even have the package from the supermarket so people can relate to it. So the best that I can find in the supermarket, but the regular supermarket, so people can identify with the food, you know. So.
Yeah. And during the pandemic, some folks were limited in what they could get at the supermarket. You probably covered that in some of the videos that we're going to use what's either in your fridge or what is available at your supermarket.
In the freezer and do stuff and freeze it and you know redo. Yeah, absolutely.
Jacques Pepin, thank you so much for taking the time to
you.
talk with us. We are so looking forward to having you come and join us in October.
I'll bring to Plattsburgh and all my friends there, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy cooking.
Thank you.